Democrats or people on the left that are talking, including Hasan Piker. Let's hear what they got to say. Well, this will eventually move forward regarding the Democrat Party.
Tim, I want to start with you, and I want to just concede that this is like a big topic, and it can be hard to tease out style from substance, strategy, ideology. But I want to start with that 2024 dynamic. You have Trump and his allies on Rogan and a whole bunch of apolitical shows and media. In hindsight, Democrats say, oh, we need Democrats that can go everywhere. They have to go everywhere just like Trump did. But then we look around and we say, well, who are the Democrats that can do that? And as a former Republican, as a pilgrim in an unholy land, who's gone from viewing Democrats being annoying as an asset to a liability, like, where is your head at?
Well, I was happy about the woke Sharia in New York, but you do have to remember that the CIA has taken over in Virginia across the river. So the deep state establishment is also Sharia.
And as a former Republican, as a pilgrim in an unholy land, who's gone from viewing Democrats being annoying as an asset to a liability, like, where is your head at?
Well, I was happy about the woke Sharia in New York, but you do have to remember that the CIA has taken over in Virginia across the river. So the deep state establishment is also on the rise.
Big Tent.
Big Tent. You know what, love it. You guys are kind of annoying, and it is something that we're dealing with. And I think that it's important to just accept it and think about it. And the fundamental question you got to, which was, okay, well, we need a Rogan of our own, or we got to be able to go hang out with these, folks. We got to be appealing more.
The old idea that Democrats need a Joe Rogan of their own at this point, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's important. I do think that the best way to characterize this, as corny as it sounds, is Democrats just need to become more likable and more cool, right? There are aspects of the right that is so unhinged, but there are aspects of the right where people might say this is a role model characteristic, right? Being wealthy, being a man, being working out and going to the gym, you know what I'm saying? So just be a little bit more cool.
The comedian said, and then it's like, well, who would go on the podcast? And then it's like, well, are you available? Are you? Like the list is kind of short, right? And so, we can't create people from scratch. But I think that it's important. When I look back at the mistakes the Democrats made that got us to this place, it's like, Biden wins in 20 when everybody's inside, right? So you didn't have to be out there. And then in 22, it's like, well, we didn't have a red wave, so it's like things are going pretty well, right? And so I just think that there was a lot of just inertia and status quo happening, and a lot of the problems that were undergirding that. A lot of things we're frustrated with about COVID or about the not as fun parts of woke Sharia, right? Like there wasn't a lot of reflection on that, and I think that it's good to reflect on it now. And I think that Tuesday was awesome, but just because we did really well on Tuesday because Trump is fucking everything up does not mean that we shouldn't also think about how we can continue to kind of expand out and appeal to more people.
Simone.
Yeah, one thing that I've come to find out after really thinking about all these issues and doing my own research is that the status quo can be good for steady improvement. But the moment something drastic happens that changes the course of what the status quo is perceived as, at that point, you need to make or be willing to make radical adjustments. And I just don't think that was the case during COVID. COVID is what changed the status quo. And because COVID changed the status quo, you needed to adapt to it and really, really ensure that the people are not going to backlash from it. And the Democrats just didn't do that.
It seems like Democrats are often in a trap, which is Trump or one of his acolytes does something genuinely offensive, whether it's attacking or undermining a democratic institution or going after a vulnerable group of people. And Democrats want to defend those people, right? But then at times, sometimes they seem like they're writing their own version of the Federalist Papers, or they are doing what is then described as identity politics. And so how do you fight back against Trump when he's attacking people, when he's making an issue of marginalized groups, without then being seen by a broader group or being focused less on, say, the economy? How do you square that circle?
Well, I'm from North Omaha, Nebraska. Shout out to the Midwest people in the room. Yes, there are black people. There are black people in Nebraska all over this country, maybe not North Dakota. And so I say that because earlier this summer, a Black man who is a Democrat unseated a 3-term Republican mayor in Omaha, Nebraska. And we can clap for that. His name is John Ewing. And John Ewing, I grew up knowing John Ewing. I know him very well. But in that race, like in many other races across this country that have happened since 2024, one of the issues that the Republican candidate tried to, pull to the forefront were bathrooms and trans issues. And you know what John Ewing's answer was? Well, first of all, he had an answer. He put up an ad to answer the attacks, which I think is really important. You cannot let attacks go. You cannot allow your opponent, as a former strategist, you cannot have your opponent defining you and you not answering. So that's part of it. I think specifically coming out of 2024, a lot of candidates.
That's a very important point that she mentioned. The idea that you could just ignore the baseless claims, the attacks, the lies is Not true. You can't just ignore it. You have to be able to answer it in a succinct manner, but also control the narrative. It's unfair, but it's just the reality of dealing with like bad people.
Did not answer the attacks. And some people were just like, oh, no, that's not me. And it's like, well, who are you? But John Ewing put up ads and went out there and did speeches and was on the streets talking to folks during interviews and whatnot and campaigning and saying, she's doing this because she don't want to talk about the potholes. She doesn't want to talk about the issues that are affecting you. She's want to make up this issue that I'm not talking about. She doesn't want to talk about the potholes. And so I think the answer is not to run away from the confrontation. Like, you're not about to make me, as I used to always tell candidates, don't allow these folks, any of your opponents, to make you believe that you're for an issue that you've never taken up. Like, I don't know what the hesitancy is from some of the campaigns and the strategists over the last, couple of cycles to just not be clear about what folks are for and what they're not for. Because in 2024, that they them ad was seen everywhere. And Black people in Philadelphia told me, the organizers in Philadelphia said that everybody had saw that ad and there was no counter and they believed it. So I do think that, I don't think Democrats need to do a wholesale, like, you need a full brand rebrand, because I think, frankly, the Democratic Party brand, it might never be popular. But what may be, and that's okay, because what you need are candidates who people like and they want to vote for and who they believe in. And if the brand is popular or not, I think the Democrats need to be less concerned about rehabilitating the brand of the Democratic Party apparatus and more concerned about running candidates that are close to the issues in the districts and places that they're trying to win.
That's interesting. From my understanding on how she framed that is Democrats should focusing on the ground level and focusing on individual needs and using that as a means to connect to the people instead of having a consolidated, overarching, agreed upon message. Democrats should focus on their areas that are adhering to the people that have chosen them to be the representative of said district, of said state, of said city. I do think there is something more potent. That's how it should be, actually. That's the reason why we have the kind of government style that exists right now. The federal government was never supposed to be this powerful. The executive branch was never supposed to be seen as a king. It was always supposed to be something that is started from the local level and becomes less prevalent to you as an individual up until the federal level. That's how its intended purpose should be. And if the Democrats use that as their pillar of their strategy, saying that we don't all agree. We're not all Democrats that agree on things that help the people, that based off some people in New York versus someone in Iowa. We're just here because we want to help people. Our message is helping people. Republicans' message is to help themselves. I think that is potent, and I do think that is powerful. I actually agree to that. I like that.
Tim don't agree. Tim don't agree.
I know. I mean, the brand is
is
I agree with
but
that.
The brand was fubu and people voted for Democrats anyway. So to me, that says people are willing to support candidates even if they think your brand is shitty.
Well, I think
I don't know.
I think it's an important part of what I think the dynamic we see, right? Which is, there was just a report that came out that said, here's a set of policies that are broadly popular that Democrats should embrace going into the midterms, and they're pretty moderate and sort of.
Oh, a bunch of these people that lost some races and had one recently put this report out.
Yeah, it was shocking. I for one was shocked when I saw that report. I was like, wow. So do the exact same thing that the Democrats have been doing that caused them a sequence of failures. That's good. I like that.
I knew there was no way.
Moderate enough. That was what the issue was.
There was no way I was going to get to the end of that sentence. I don't even know why I considered starting it, but taken. But when I hear what you're saying there, when I see a report like that, I see a group of people struggling against a brand that is in the toilet and a bunch of people trying to win despite that, which is another way of saying we're in a ravine. Let's find the highest spot we can here in this trench that we're stuck in. But there's the reason I think this question is important, even if you're right, like people win despite disliking the Democratic Party, people hate Congress like their congressperson. I do think it's worth asking to what it's like to imagine a world in which Democrats are broadly popular. So
how many gummies you take before coming out here?
So which brings me to Jessica. So I'll reveal something to all of you, which is John, Tommy, and I share an office perfectly. And we often, if not more often than not now, switch over to Fox News during the day. And we do because we want to see what's happening over there. But also, it's entertaining. It is. They're having fun over there.
True story.
I think one of the reasons why the Democrats will never be popular is because of what was said earlier. If they stop preaching themselves that their way is the best way for all people, then that just will never be the case, because not everybody cares about social issues. Not everybody cares about immigrants. Not everybody cares about human rights, to be frank. So just know your base and follow procedures that is ethically good, which is typically on the Democrat side, at the very least in the last decade. And that should be the procedure. It's difficult because there are things that people believe should be universal, but the idea of universal government style just does not work.
And Jessica, I want you to talk about like what it is like to be in that environment, because part of what is so fun is their just collective appreciation and shared view of Democrats, which is that they're kind of feckless and funny and ridiculous.
They definitely enjoy that part of it. And I'm so glad that this conference is this week and not last week, because we'd all just be sitting around crying and looking at that memo and saying, well, this is 57% popular, so I think we should go with that. But now we have some wins and we have this diverse set of wins. So I have had a way better a couple of days.
Yeah, they've been almost circumspect.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes they got a little rowdy too, but you can't dispute results like that. You can't dispute a Mamdani win and a Spanberger win and whatever happened in the Mississippi State House. And I'm obsessed with whatever a public commissioner is in Georgia. That, I still
when
don't know,
nobody shows up to vote, we win.
Yeah.
It's important to remember.
But the joy is important to the formula that makes Fox so appealing as a set of programs to watch. And I think about it in context of the joy campaign of 2024 that was not, right? We were being told all the time, like, you're having so much fun. Like, Brat Summer feels great. And I did feel great at the DNC because I thought that was the moment of like, maybe we have a chance. But it was fleeting. And it's always on our side. I think since the 2016 election, it feels like it's forced upon us versus it's coming from within. There may be individual candidates that we're into. I've gotten super excited about people, down ballot all over the place, or, I love Ruben Gallego. Like, that's always fun for me to talk about. But because we have this kind of uniform policy of stay in line, it's joyless because you can't feel free to criticize somebody that you disagree with, or, you're gonna get scolded by this person and that person. And the Republicans, generally speaking, live free of that amongst themselves. I mean, criticizing Trump is a whole other thing, but they go about their business in a way that we don't, and that I think that we're adapting to, in at least based on these election results. And Fox captures that there are people who have kind of like a shared core set of values maybe, but they're not taking themselves that seriously. They're not like scolding each other. Like, it also matters in the quality of the program.
I don't even agree to that. The difference between Republicans and Democrats at the end of the day is that they have a moral structure that they can always adhere to in one way or the other. And as cliche as it is, it's Christianity. Now we throw in nationalism. So it's Christianity and nationalism. So regardless of innate, like, individual differences, those underlying principles can be the bedrock of what the Republicans are supposed to represent. Christianity and nationalism, everything that is differing between the individuals is subsequent in comparison to the overarching moral guidelines. So the Democrats don't have that because not everybody's a religious, not everybody's a nationalist. I think for the most part, it's the idea that they are advocating for a human right and human dignity and human liberties. So that is a lot more vague, because where you apply those certain values can differ depending on how you perceive the problem itself. So, like, when we look at healthcare, for example, some believe that universal healthcare is the best way to help people in a humanitarian way. Others believe it's a more, I guess, capitalist, private sector-based medical health insurance program. Regardless of what is right or wrong, both sides truly believe that this is the best way for human dignity, human capital in general. So that is always going to be a problem for Democrats. So that's why the idea for them to focus not in terms of everybody's universal needs in America, but your people's needs in your district, on the people you're representing, that matters more. So you speak on it not for this will help people, this will help my people, probably will be the best case. And the my people will have a lot more substance because you're not representing a specific identity. You're representing a group of people that is spread out in the area you live in. These people chose you, so you have to adhere to them. That's probably the best way to go about it. It is tough when it comes to Democrats, though. It plainly is.
Programming, it looks great. Our graphics are beautiful. Our lighting is fantastic. Are you making a face?
Look, I'm your Fedayeen. I'm your biggest diehard fan, okay? But no, I don't think the Fox News graphics are beautiful. Look, I respect what you do, especially because, like, if I had to sit next to Jesse Waters and Greg Butfeld the entire time, I would kill myself. And the fact that you have been able to successfully sit in that room every day and just white knuckle through Jesse Waters' snide-ass remarks is impressive. It is.
Concur.
Thank you. And it is nice to be amongst my people, which I'm usually not like cautiously weaving through. But my point, bring it up. And you don't have to love our graphics, even though they're copied in every movie and things like that. It's like the official look of it. But even when
The PR people love Jessica. She is a favorite of the Fox PR folks.
but nothing is taken that seriously. And that's not the case in liberal media. And that doesn't mean you're not talking about serious things. But there's this feeling like it is not the end of the world in every topic that you're discussing. And this idea that we can just go and show up in conservative spaces or come for an hour and you have to be open to those kinds of things, like doesn't capture how hard it is for people who vote like me and some of the things that I think to genuinely form bonds and interact on an ongoing basis with people who you disagree with. An hour, 2 hours, 3 hours is not getting to know the other side. Living amongst them and spending time with them is. And I think that's why I'm able to do my job and have a reasonable therapy bill, like not insane, but we know each other like the family that it looks like, which is dysfunctional, but it's still a family. And people who watch the show, and we have 20% Democratic viewership, like still get that.
Hasan,
Sorry, I know it's not maybe not the answer you guys wanted, but
You're not getting a lot of claps because you're defending Fox News in this room.
Well, I think, let me speak. I want to talk to Hasan about what you just said. But before, I heard something from the crowd, and I think it reflects what they're feeling, which is, well, they're not taking it seriously because these are people that are not appreciating the consequences or are ignoring or telling themselves a story about the consequences. And I know you know that. But that's a challenge for the left. I think sometimes we are seen as upset or scolding because we're motivated by like a deep set of values. And when you watch Fox, there's a frivolousness to it, but maybe that's a kind of carelessness about what's happening to the country.
I totally agree with you about certain issues. Absolutely. And I make that.
Those deep set of values are not consistent, though. That they are not universal all across the board. That's the problem. That's the core difference.
Very clear, and they can make fun of me or whatever, but elections have consequences. We saw on Tuesday night that the American public sees through it. That's the point. Like, people get all hot and bothered about how conservatives are reacting to certain things and that they're being dismissive, but they're the ones that think the American public is stupid. And we're the ones who know that they can see what's going on. So whether you get 90 seconds of talk time or you get to talk for hours a day on your podcast or on your live stream, all the things for Hasan, like, they're the ones that are doubting people's capacity to understand. And so I get what you're saying, and I feel it. And sometimes I don't like being made fun of sometimes for being upset about American citizens taken into ICE detention and not getting to call their loved ones. But Tuesday night, people showed up all over the country and said, fuck off. That is unacceptable.
This episode is brought to you by Blinds.com. The holidays come fast. Your Blinds.com for what it delivers custom window treatments for your space, your way, at your convenience. And unlike some competitors, the price you see is the price you pay. No.
Hasan.
I got to pause.
Hasan hasn't gone 17 minutes without talking since 2014.
The stage is
anxiety
vibrating, and I'm sorry it took this long to get to the fact that what we saw in New York on Tuesday in many ways feels like an antidote to some of this problem. Zoran Mamdani is having fun out there, and he's also representing a incredibly enthusiastic base of people who are finding community in being part of politics. And that does seem like something now that is more easily formed on the left. I can think of all the candidates and campaigns that have been left driven, that have built that energy and enthusiasm and sense of fun. Brad Summer was an exception. There was a moment we can all look back and be like, I went full Brad.
I mean, I was there.
We were, yeah.
And as someone who was there at the DNC before I got kicked out, but on the last day, I actually found myself feeling a sense of anxiety over the course of every single day that passed, where I was like, why is everybody just like celebrating like we're at the end zone here when it is not a guarantee that Kamala Harris is going to win? And I kept warning over and over again that there were a lot of unaddressed issues that the Democrats just kind of never wanted to acknowledge at all. And
Can we not just be excited we had somebody who could talk, though? Could we just have had 1 week? We were excited for a week because she could talk.
No,
so that was great. So just give us a break.
No, but the excitement that came into the DNC was actually because for some reason, right? And the reason is because people finally realized Joe Biden was, his brain was leaking out of his ear. I'm sorry. and for that reason, I know there's probably a lot of Democratic Party staffers in here. They're going to get really pissed off for me for saying this, but it almost felt like we had a competent party for once, and they were responsive to the people's needs. And that's the reason why everyone was excited. I was excited.
We had a competent party the entire time. Like, I mean, Joe Biden just got old. It's undeniable that Joe Biden did a lot in his presidency that was very good. The issue is he didn't do what Hasan wanted regarding the Israel-Palestine conflict. That's the only thing he cares about, to be honest.
Saw Kamala Harris choose Tim Walz when she could have just as easily gone with Josh Shapiro, for example. I was like, oh my God, is this happening? Is there like an actual progressive momentum backing this candidacy, backing this campaign? And then they backpocketed him. And Kamala Harris went from saying that she was going to do price controls, and she actually very decently messaged around that by saying, we're just going to go after price gougers, right, at the grocery store, which was her most popular policy at the time, and directly addressed one of the main...
That is not true. A lot of people did not like price controls. A lot of people had issues with price controls. MAGA was using that as an argument that she is advocating for communism. Now, that didn't tell the full story, obviously, but her most popular policy definitely is not price controls. That's probably the one that people were talking about the most because there was so much controversy around it. That's what's going on. If we're talking about like substance wise, her idea of like building more homes probably had the most substance behind it. I do think Kamala Harris definitely needed to have a bigger, distinguishable platform that differed from Joe Biden, but we don't gotta
economic anxieties that people were experiencing. And then lo and behold, her brother-in-law, who's head of legal at Uber, came on and was like, cut this economic populism shit out. And then you had $50,000 in tax credits for small business owners, and that was not addressing the problems that people were experiencing. And I think that we have to do the honest autopsy of this campaign and realize that maybe people were excited for the progressive momentum that they perceived the campaign actually was going to have, and the responsiveness that the party finally had to the people's desires, to the base of voters' desires. But then they kind of just threw that into the wind and just kept pumping Liz Cheney and refused to talk about.
Sorry for wanting to help. Poor Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney. Can I just do one thing on the honest autopsy though? Because here, I actually we can find some common ground on the economic populism stuff. I think that Kamala should have probably, in retrospect, obviously, had a more tangible message on economic populism. My problem with the walls thing though is that that relates to the topic of this panel is that I think if we're having an honest autopsy and looking back at the campaign, there were a lot of liberals that live on the coast that were like, whoa, this dude can change a carburetor, and I can put on a camo hat. Like he's gonna really that guy is really gonna connect with rural America because he seems like a guy that really connects with rural America. And people who like grew up in rural America who lived in red spaces are like, no, like that is the guy who was the PFLAG teacher at the rural high school. And by the way, being the PFLAG sponsor at a rural high school is awesome. That's a great thing to be. Everybody loves that. That's great. But like everybody who's from that world did not look at him and say, you code conservative, or like you have conservative values like me. They coded him. It's like, oh, you're the nice liberal at the school, right? And so I think that if we're going to have an honest reflection on the last campaign, the economic populism stuff was a miss too, was a miss for sure. But being seen as being to the cultural left and being out of step with the country culturally on a wide variety of issues, whether it be social issues or COVID or free speech or just being able to chill on comedians podcasts, like that was a miss, and it was and people misunderstood what Tim Walz was bringing to the table because he was not able to do any of that.
Yeah, I think the cultural stuff is only relevant if that is ostensibly the only thing that you're bringing to the table. And unfortunately for the Democratic Party, I mean, these used to be wedge issues for a reason, right? These were concocted in think tanks with the deliberate design to make it seem as though there was some significant disagreements between the two parties, and they were created to make the Republicans more popular so that people would focus on whatever the Family Foundation decided was a more successful way to present anti-trans narratives after focus testing their message. And when people are focusing on that, they're always going to go, okay, well, the Democrats are silly. Why do they care about this? This is like a tiny sliver of the population. Instead, they should, like, every moment that they're talking about that is a moment where they're not talking about like affordability, where they're not talking about like a working class centered party.
Where are the Democrats that ran on trans issues? Show them to me, people. Where are they? They did it.
No, I agree.
Did it.
I agree. They
it was
not.
the Republicans.
But you actually brought that up, and I 100% agree with you.
Okay, good. Sorry, I jumped out my seat.
No, I want.
He doesn't agree. He's walking back because Hasan struggles under a confrontation. You see it all the time. He's not a good debater. When it comes down to situations regarding the social issues, his initial claim was that they are allowing the messaging to focus on these social issues, which is straying away from the point that people care about the most, right? And that's why she responded like, bro, Democrats were not talking about this. Republicans are. So why are you creating an issue? Because he was making it seem, based off how he was contextually navigating the conversation, that Democrats' problem was in the fact that this was an issue being brought up. So just want to make that clear.
100% agree with you because you said the potholes, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're talking about the potholes and your opponent is constantly being like, well, what about trans people? Then they look insincere and they look silly. And there is no reason to betray marginalized groups and decide that we're going to actively write them out of the equation because they're working class as well. And this is something that I have never compromised on. And yet seemingly I've been able to find like a very populist and robust movement in my own audience that does not compromise on these issues, but also is always in the affirmative, making the argument that we have to focus on kitchen table issues, if you want to use that kind of language around it, but like center the working class.
When do you talk about these issues, though? The only thing I hear you talk about is Israel-Palestine. I never hear him talk about actual issues that people care about. It's always social issues or Israel-Palestine. It's always the fringe issues that most Americans don't care about, but the far left progressives.
And try to seek out what their problems are, address them, and also make this earnest attempt and show that we are honest about actually fighting for them. And I think Zoran's campaign and its success was a fantastic example of this. I know people say it's in New York, but that's precisely what he did. 5 key issues. He went out, he asked people, what's your problem? I'm going to solve it. And he centered his campaign around 5 key issues of affordability in New York. And lo and behold, in spite of 22 billionaires spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to take him out, in spite of a very hostile media environment, especially leading up to the primary, or certainly after the primary, they genuflected a little bit by the end. But and all of these attack ads, he still won.
Yeah. I want to tease out.
It's your show. I am your.
Yeah, I do want to give. I've given Zoran a lot of credit, but again, we don't need to put him on a pedestal like he is the savior of the Democrats. He is one way to run a campaign, just like the lady initially said that there are different ways you have to adhere to the people. He adhered to New Yorkers, right? The moderate Democrats won as well. They won by a bigger margin. That's another way to appeal to the people.
God, this is going great.
Are we having fun yet?
I'm at it. Are we having fun yet? No, Jessica, I want you to respond, and I want to kind of tease 2 things out here.
Well, I agree. I totally agree. I just exist in a world where we can't behave that way. Like, not everybody who's going to run for office or who wants to have a voice can build the platform that you have. You're ridiculously talented, and
Damn, thank you.
Ridiculously talented, a nepo baby is ridiculously talented. All he does is talk about stuff that he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about half the time. Like, come on, bro. That is glazed, but okay, maybe I'm just a Hasan Piker hater.
no, but even being able to talk that long, it's a skill set that I don't have. But when you say we don't need to deal with this, and I agree with you about the ad, and I remember when that happened. There are people who are running in races where you need to do more than that. Like we were talking earlier, I was over doing Tim's pod with him. We're talking about Jared Golden not running in Maine. And Jared Golden can't afford to not talk about the issues that his constituents genuinely care about because they also vote for Donald Trump. And for some of them, they just want to hear someone say, listen, I want to protect everybody. I'm an inclusive guy, but whatever happened with Leah Thomas, or that's always like the lightning rod, trans athlete issue. I understand your concern about, trans women and women's sports. That doesn't mean Jared Golden needs to say, I want to ban on this. It means Jared Golden says, like the head of the NCAA did when they testified, this is, we're talking about 10 athletes out of 500,000. So it is a small fraction of the population, but I'm not going to dismiss your concerns. And this big tent and a winning coalition across this country has to be compromising about what people need to do to win their races. I'm not talking about being bigoted. I'm not talking about being nasty, but the country operates differently in different places. And I feel like we give lip service to that, but don't always behave that way.
The thing is, if the Democratic Party was defined by 5 key policies, okay? Medicare for all, a single payer system, socialized medicine, right? Something of that sort. And a plan to expand the available housing.
Go ahead. Name 5. Name 5, Hasan. Come on. Let's hear it.
Units. I want socialized housing. That is not even broached. That's not even discussed amongst the Democratic Party. I want a federal jobs guarantee and a jobs program to build those houses, right? Free college and better education overall from K through 12. If those were like your 5 key signature.
Yo, this is Hasan's such a disingenuous. Because this is not how you act. You don't talk about these issues. No, you don't. I agree that these are good issues. Most of your platform is shitting on people who do not agree with you about Israel-Palestine. This is just so disingenuous, man. It's just so disingenuous. It's not a real conversation where people who actually want to help the Democrats. It's a conversation to make his platform look good, and then he brings those people to his platform, and then he says nonsense. Like I heard Hutch say that Hasan is the Nick Fuentes of the left, and at least Nick Fuentes stays 10 toes, right? Hasan tries to make it seem like he's more rational than he actually is, in some of the extreme things he says.
Campaign promises that directly tackle all of the issues that the economic hardships that people in the heartland are actually going through, and not just highly educated liberals in big cities. Then any moment that these people would turn around and be like, well, what about trans people? They're going to get healthcare too. You could just be like, okay, what do you not want healthcare because you think a trans person is going to get it?
Well, I just want to be clear. There was a moment on the debate stage where they weren't talking about trans people, but in the Democratic primary in 2020, they asked, there was one of the large primary debates, and they asked, well, do you think undocumented people should have healthcare? People raised their hand. It was used as an attack ad, and it was an effective attack ad. So I think sometimes I agree with some of what you're saying. Okay, the dig at small businesses, I disagree with, because the biggest driver of wealth in African American communities outside of government jobs, which is why the fact that 300,000 Black women have lost their government jobs is a blow to like wealth ascension in this country for Black women, is small businesses. And so the small business plan was a plan that spoke to working class Black and brown people in this country who do not work at large corporations but had an idea, wanted entrepreneurship, and then they saw a plan for them. And so it was a wide, tense situation. But I guess my point is to Jessica, what Jessica is saying, yes, I do think candidates have to be, you got to run for your district. You got to run for the race that you're in. As a, I'm a Black woman from the Midwest every day, everywhere I go. Okay. I live in Washington, D.C., but I'm Black and I'm bald. So there are some things I think I hear when these conversations come up, and I've said in strategist rooms when they've come up on campaigns I've worked on, and I hear them on the sets and the commercial breaks when we have some of these candidates on our show. It feels like to some people that look like me, that the people within the party apparatus want folks to compromise on issues that for me are uncompromisable when folks say that. And so, like, I do think that if the party is like, look, people need to, I think the answer is people need to run for the race that they're in. Okay, well, what does that mean? Does that mean because let's be very clear, Donald Trump and the Republicans, they aren't looking for a big tent. They're like, mass deportation, F you, look at my one good Black person, shithole.
She's cooking. She's absolutely cooking. And I got straight away from the point because I think Hasan is just a pathological liar. My initial point still stands. The idea that the Democrat Party should have core issues that they all care about. All these Democrats in every area that they live in are not all following these same type of things, are not all determining these are the primary issues that they care about. As she said right there, the whole stuff with small businesses, there's a section of people who might vote Democrat that's like, no, we can't compromise with that. So that is something you have to pay attention to. Pay attention to what your voters want, and adhere to them. Don't adhere to this kind of blind notion of principles that the internet Democrats want.
Countries in Africa, all the brown people need to be deported. Women got blood coming down their eyes, but like, yay, we're going back to a meritocracy, and that means only white men. Like, hold on, what? But they were winning. And so they didn't win because they opened up the aperture and let people do what they need to do. They won because they tripled down on what they believe, even if what they believe.
Right. That's just not. I'm sorry. That sounds good, and I like it. I want it to be right. It's just not right.
They didn't win because they tripled down on what they believe.
No, they did triple down on what they believe.
Yes, they tripled down on racism.
Yeah,
it was populism, but populism is a thin ideology mixed with a thick ideology, according to Cass Mudd. His populism had a lot of things. It was an economic populist, but populism had a little white supremacy in it, a little racism. Like Bernie Sanders is a populist in a different way than Donald Trump.
Yeah, here's the thing.
So I don't understand.
Here's the thing. Though. Can I just say really quick though? Here's the thing. Like, yeah, he doubled down on a bunch of terrible shit that they believe that's extreme. No doubt. He also was seen as left of Kamala on foreign policy. He was seen as an anti-war candidate. He was seen as anti the Republican establishment of war. He cut to the middle on that.
Yeah, he lied about that for sure.
He's a liar.
He lied.
Yeah.
He lied.
But then maybe our guy should lie about some things that are popular too.
Okay,
I don't know.
Now you sound like me during the campaign where I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing when you're not like addressing this stuff where Donald Trump can present himself as the peace candidate? That was insane to me. But obviously, sending Bill Clinton to Dearborn to talk about Judea and Samaria, as most people were seeing.
All right.
Most people were seeing.
I want to bring us back.
Let's not pretend like they didn't moderate on things. That's all I'm saying.
I'm having so much fun.
No, I'm sorry. You cannot have a convention where you have signs that say mass deportation now.
I'm not saying he wasn't a moderate. I'm saying he moderated on things.
Ethnocentric nationalist version of this country and say that he moderated. What he did is say, people in Gaza, you should vote for me because Joe Biden ain't doing what you want. That's not a moderation. He had good rhetoric, but his policy was consistent. And the vice president on that debate stage said all of the things that he was saying that he would do, and he has outdone them. He said he was going to send the military into the streets. He was saying it on the campaign. That's not moderation. That's fascism. He said he was going to deport all.
Okay, so this is where this is some substantive debate. This is some good stuff right here. So there's an interesting argument that's taking place right now. Is the value of perceived moderation versus actual moderation, or the value of messaging? What I mean by this is that she's making the argument that everything that is outlined based on what he was representing were extreme rhetoric that adhered to a very specific type of ideology that was very clearly right wing, arguably radical right wing. Tim is arguing that there are things that he advocated for that were radical right wing. He agrees to that. However, there are other ways that he won the election by adhering to a moderate type of individual of things that they cared about that would be considered more center right, i.e. anti-war, right? I actually, anti-war, what is it called? What's the term of where you don't want to get involved in foreign affairs? You guys know what I'm talking about. I would pretty much agree to what she's saying versus what Tim's saying. And this is my case, right? Because of when it comes down to the framing of things, it it needs to be a art, but everything is a branch of a specific ideology. Even though you can consider being anti-war more moderate, a moderate principle, this still attaches its thread to the overall MAGA far right fascist ideology. Because this anti foreign war thing is made to people to believe that they are doing this because they don't want to get involved in foreign conflict, but in reality it's because they want to get in, they don't want to get in certain conflict that does not adhere to their radical rhetoric, right? They want to be involved with the Israel conflict in a different way that helps this idea. They don't want to be involved in the Ukraine Russia thing, so they'll call it anti-war, but in reality they're more friendly with Russia. They say they want to be anti-war, but that's only because the conflicts that are happening are helping people that they don't care about, so they're going to frame it like they're anti-war, but in reality they're anti people that do not benefit the MAGA ideology. That is the important part. They just want to be a part of things that help the MAGA ideology. That's why now he's more than willing to go be a part of the Israel conflict in different ways. He's willing to be a part of the Nigerian conflict. He's willing to invade Venezuela. Why? Because this helps the MAGA ideology. So I think Tim pretty much said it very concretely. They were lying about being anti-war. Simple as that. They were lying about being anti-war. But we, as people who analyze politics, understand the true intentionality behind what they plan to do.
All of these people in this country.
agree. Yeah.
That is what he said. That it's not just the criminals. He's coming for anybody that is in this country who is undocumented. So I can't get with the, well, Donald Trump didn't moderate a bit. No, they tripled down on the bad stuff and had nice graphics and good and smiled through it.
So can I I want to bring us back.
Simone.
All right, Hasan, quick, and then I want to bring us back.
Simone is absolutely right, 100%. And these were things that I was screaming about nonstop.
You
but
said
there was
agreed with
also
me that he ran
No.
the left of Kamala on
Yes.
foreign policy.
On foreign
That's
policy.
moderating. He
On foreign
moderated.
policy.
He didn't run on the unpopular
However-
Republican views.
Hassan is just talking out of both sides of his mouth. He just doesn't want to debate with anybody. He wants to side with the side that's correct. You could tell. I hate Hassan. I think he's terrible. I think he is a bad person. Not in the same way as like Donald Trump or Nick Fuentes, but I think individually, I don't think he has good character. I think some things he advocates for could be argued as good, but he just cares about popularity and making himself more wealthy. I don't think he genuinely cares about people. This is not a shit on Hassan video. What am I doing? Sorry, Hassan fans. We're focusing on the debate. Hassan, say what you got to say. I think you're talking out both sides of your mouth, but I apologize. I didn't need to rain on you like that. Go ahead.
However, he ran to the left on foreign policy only because the Democrats came out and said, I'm going to have the most lethal military. Because unfortunately, I mean this sincerely, I don't think the Democrats actually saw the threat of Donald Trump as a significant enough threat, because if they were, they would have locked in. And
What? The Democrats didn't see Trump as a big... He's just chatting, bro. He's not adding anything of substance to this conversation. He is
and had better messaging overall, and tried to at least establish a base of support with counter narrative, with counter messaging leading up to the election, not in the aftermath or not during the election.
They did.
Republicans, they act as though there's
leading up to... They did. Constantly. Talk about how bad Trump was. People were saying we're just becoming the anti-Trump party because of how much we brought this up. They did. They brought it up constantly, consistently.
an election every single day. They are constantly on message. They're constantly creating an alternative reality with lies, saying that undocumented migrants are actually responsible for a metric ton of the crimes that are taking place in American cities, when that is an abject lie, okay? And when I talk to congresspersons, whether it be at the DNC or even before, even after, and I tell them, why the fuck aren't you guys counter-messaging against this? We are a nation of immigrants. America is the most diverse nation on the fucking planet. It is literally the reason why we are such a domineering force beyond all these other, beyond all the other, violent reasons. But like that is one of the most redeemable aspects of America that I personally love, that the Democrats completely dropped because they were scared. They saw that one poll from the Pew Center of Research that said that
he is full of shit, bro. Democrats were scared of messages against Trump is a fucking lie. This is just not true. Oh my God, bro. Now, were they doing it the best that they could? No, they sucked at it. They sucked at it. It took Gavin Newsom to find out the perfect strategy to message against them. And his strategy is genius. It's just do what Trump is doing, showing you how fucking ridiculous this is. Genius. But to say that they didn't care, they were afraid of Trump is a fucking lie.
66% of Americans want mass deportations. That exact same poll also showed that if given two options, mass deportation and mass amnesty, that the majority always chose mass amnesty. So why is that never communicated? Because Americans, sure, the median voter, trying to understand where the median voter is coming from is impossible, okay? You will kill yourself if you try to understand what these people
You
are
just
thinking.
lost me, Hasan. I was with you halfway through that, but you lost me. But I'm with
No, but what I'm trying to say is this, okay? There are Trump supporters out there, okay, that have been deluded into thinking that Donald Trump represented a change. And obviously we saw that buyer's remorse this past Tuesday, right? Especially in Hispanic communities where they were like, oh, I can't believe that he is actually doing mass deportation. And it's you know, we're in DC, it's a fairly liberal crowd and we laugh at those people, but like I talk to those people every day and there were people that genuinely thought, they genuinely believed that Donald Trump was actually excising the violent criminals. And the only reason why people are led to believe this lie, aside from the faucet of misinformation that comes from independent outlets on the right and also Fox News as well, is because there is no robust response from the Democratic Party that says that's a fucking lie. That's a lie. Undocumented migrants in this country are responsible.
Not true. This is not true. Democrats constantly called out Trump's lies consistently. This is a lie. The problem is that you proliferated bad rhetoric regarding Democrats. Your circle was just to shit on Democrats. You didn't care about what the Democrats were saying. You didn't retweet. You didn't enforce. You said, yeah, they are. You didn't help the messaging at all. You just shat on it all the time. He is such a bad faith representative of the Democrats, bro.
Responsible for a lower rate of per capita crime than natural-born U.S. citizens are. If you pair that up with documented migrants, it's negligible. It is marginal, and they're hyper-focusing on it specifically because this is a vulnerable population that is easy to target and it's easy to ridicule, and there is not enough of a robust defense mechanism out there, and that's the reason why people end up believing this.
He just refuses to take accountability for his part to play in all of this. He just refuses. He refuses. He didn't even endorse Kamala Harris. He didn't tell his voters to vote for Kamala Harris. And you talk about how other people, how the Democrats didn't take this shit serious enough. Your bitch ass didn't want to tell people to vote for Kamala Harris. You're a fucking hypocrite. Oh, Hasan is such a two-faced, only cares about himself, only cares about his platform. He lies consistently. Nepo baby. That somehow consistently is being represented by the left because he has a big fucking radical audience. Ugh, Jesus Christ. I hate listening to Hasan Piker.
Bullshit, and then they get shocked when it's actually implemented.
So I think that's a good point. And
I don't think it's a good point.
I think I sort of agree with Tim and with Simone about this.
Impossible. Fundamental rift.
Because one of Trump's gifts is I think he convinced a lot of people he was going to go after criminals, but he also said at the convention that they were going to do mass deportations. And I think how to bring it.
All right. This is a very good conversation video. Before I wrap it up, I always like to look at the comments. Because I have to head out. They don't understand that the joy of the Mondawmin campaign was that New York finally got a candidate that actually cared for the working class. Base. That's important. Really listening to the people. Thinking people winning election because they're having fun is such a level out of touch insanity I can't even begin to comprehend. Yeah, right. I don't know, like this idea of having fun while you're doing. I mean, you have to kind of look like you're joyful. It's not important, but I kind of get it. The panel getting really quiet when Israel gets brought up, for fuck's sake. Yeah, I mean, Hasan, that's all Hasan cares about. It's a wild idea. Run on popular policy that people need and want, even if donors don't. I'm losing my mind watching. I cannot emphasize how much I don't give a single shit if a candidate looks like they're having fun or smile, having a good time. Both college graduates and live in one bedroom apartment with their child. Though some people care, I guess. Honestly, I kind of hear that. Crazy how time between this con and this video coming out, Dems managed to drop the ball again. Yeah, a lot of people are mad at Dems. Can't blame them. Dems got to do better, man. They got to be stronger. Like, Dems overall are strong, but then there's a section of Dems that are weak, for sure. But if we keep on characterizing that to represent the entire Democratic Party, it won't help. So, yeah, we just it's a It's tough. Generally, I still believe in the principle that Dems probably should be an advocate for their people. But right now, Dems need to be anti-Trump. Like, genuinely, right now, Dems need to be anti-Trump so he doesn't destroy the fucking country. That's all I got. Hope you guys enjoy. You have a good one. Take care. Peace.